local officials wanted the National Guard. That's not an option for us right now because they've been taken over by the federal government and they are being used to block the federal buildings. As Mayor Bass pointed out, 2 buildings, one in Westwood and one in downtown LA. And that has been kind of the thing here. And we talked about this a little bit earlier in our coverage. President Trump, tried to take credit for things not being worse in LA, saying if the National Guard weren't there, then, X, Y, and Z. But I can tell you, I was on the air for 8.5 hours last night. The National Guard did not step foot off the federal building.
Right.
And he's sending more.
And Mayor Bass said, to do what? You already have National Guard standing at the federal buildings. Are you going to have more troops come in and stand next to them at the federal buildings? They've not been involved at all in any kind of crowd dispersal measures, despite what the president is insinuating on his Truth Social platform. Now, there is the other question is, are there more immigration raids coming? And will they use those troops to support those immigration raids, to provide protection and provide scene control, if you will, for those federal immigration officers that could potentially be doing that? We have heard 30 days of immigration raids. Nobody has said that officially, right? The mayor, the chief, the sheriff have all said, we don't know what immigration officials are going to do, when they're going to do their enforcement actions, where they're going to do them. So is there a situation where they're bringing in more troops to continue these amplified immigration enforcement operations? We won't know till we know.
Right. Well, it makes sense, right? Because several mayors, including Mayor Bass, said this is a sanctuary city. We're not involved in helping law enforcement with these immigration raids. So they're
not involved, and according to state law, it prohibits them from even really discussing it. So we talk about how the federal immigration officials don't give the cities and counties any warning. State law would almost prohibit our local officials from even accepting that information. That was a message that was relayed yesterday by either the chief, I think it was by Chief Jim McDonnell. So there is no cooperation, there is no coordination with that because there can't be under state law.
Well, and the governor and the mayor both said, we have it handled, we don't need help from the feds.
And by the way, just really quickly want to point out, we are starting to see a social media video of the Marines that have left 29 Palms. We've got a couple sources out there who live in Desert Hot Springs and other areas that have said they've seen the buses start to leave, they've seen the Humvees start to leave. I've got a crew posted up on the 10 freeway so we can see them when they come in. But from what we can tell, they have left 29 Palms.
Within 2 hours or so, we maybe see them in the area.
Yep.
All right. Well, as we've been talking about protests in Santa Ana and in downtown LA tonight, we have our reporter Lori Perez there on the ground joining us live now to tell us about the latest. Lori, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we are at the corner of Alameda and 2nd. I think you guys were talking about this area just a little while ago. We're right in front of the Angel City Brewery, a very popular brewery here in the Arts District. And this is where we have been staged along with the police department and with protesters for about the last 15-20 minutes. As you said, not a lot going on here, but take a look at their backup here. This is all down this street. They have SUVs and armored vehicles staged. And then we did just note at the end of the block, LAPD has brought in their big white bus.
Chime exists to help everyday Americans make it. When you get paid on your terms, your world opens up.
They use that because they start to make some arrests, mass arrests, and they load that thing up with people who they are detaining and taking into custody. So perhaps that signals what their intentions are over the next hour or so. But for now, we are just watching as they are kind of keeping an eye on the protesters. And as you said, what a difference in the tone tonight. In fact, as you look back over there, someone started playing some music, and the protesters have actually, you can see the signs kind of going up and down. Some of the protesters are dancing. So peaceful at this point, kind of a waiting game, certainly on both sides, each side looking at the other, waiting to see what their next move will be. Certainly we are hoping that it stays peaceful and calm and that there is no escalation. Sorry, I'm trying to listen to what they're saying here. That's usually when they're announcing that, you have to get out of here, you have to go home, or you do face arrest. And again, as I said, we saw them just recently pull up that white bus, which might indicate they want to have that at the ready should there be some people who decide not to disperse. So that's the situation here at 2nd and Alameda at this point. Pretty calm, much different than yesterday where, as Mike was saying, by this point, we'd already seen a lot of destruction and a lot of damage. And the the mood seemed to be escalating last night. At this point tonight, that does not seem to be the case. Things remaining pretty calm here, which is just the way we like it.
Yeah, well, they might be at the ready in case they do declare an unlawful assembly, but our Mike Rogers was telling us so far that hasn't happened. Lori, were you able to hear what they were saying over the loudspeaker there?
I couldn't. Let me try and hear. Can you hear what they're saying? No, yeah, it's muffled. We can't hear. There's too much helicopter noise, etc. But I could certainly run over and try and figure out what they're trying to say.
And Lori,
but I mean, they're obviously addressing the crowd.
You know, from your event.
There we go, I figured it out. Dark mode. Oh, somebody sent me a screenshot to my email. Let me check it out. Where am I though? Sick. Oh, is that right now? No, that's not right now. That was earlier. Thank you, Ken. What the fuck, bro?
To happen, as they are anticipated to do so, then, you know, I imagine these protests will continue as well.
And the ripple effects are far and wide, Susie. Today, California Attorney General Rob Bonta announcing a lawsuit over the use of these National Guard troops by telling reporters that Trump has, quote, trampled the state's sovereignty, which has been a big concern to lawmakers locally and at the state level.
Well, as we've been watching this protest in downtown LA, we told you there was another one happening in Santa Ana as well. And we're going to bring you, of course, the very latest throughout the night here on KCAL News, and we hope you'll join us and stay with us. But we're going to continue our coverage as we know these events are very important to everyone here in Southern California and affecting so many people. As we've been talking about, many arrests made, detained by ICE, that was starting on Friday, at various businesses in LA County. And we want to welcome you now to KCAL News at 8. And this is breaking news now at 8. Heightened tension spreading across Southern California as large crowds descend on downtown LA and Santa Ana to protest against ICE raids.
And here's the damage left behind by demonstrators: broken windows, graffiti. Crews cleared out and cleaned up to prepare for more unrest.
And a lesson in community and Southern California protests from a Compton business owner.
Good evening, everybody. Juan Fernandez along with Susie Sa and Mike Rogers on the desk. We begin KCAL News at 8 with breaking news tonight. Protests continue for a fourth night following ICE raids around L.A.
KCAL News reporter Tom Waite live tonight in downtown L.A. What's it looking like out there now, Tom?
And good evening to you, Juan and Susie. We're in Little Tokyo right now, and you can see police are staged here at this corner on 1st Street in San Pedro. They've got this street closed off, kind of part of a strategy, it looks like, here to kind of break up and move the crowd, and it has been very effective, although there is still a fairly large concentration of people here in the Little Tokyo area, and you can see a number of them. There's a lot of Mexican flags. There's a lot of people honking. We've heard fireworks going off. We have not seen any clashes between police and members of the crowd. Earlier, we did see that. Some of the less than lethal weapons were used against people throwing objects into police lines. So there was definitely a number of confrontations between the officers and the protesters, kind of just for hours near the City Hall area, just a few blocks from where we are. And there definitely were some very tense and volatile moments there. I have to say, though, right now it feels very, very different. I was here Friday night when this all started. It was very intense. Obviously tensions boiled over, and you had protesters and police, really going at it for hours. Protesters, throwing things at police guarding the federal building, so on and so forth. That is not what we're seeing tonight. And look, right now it's interesting. I wonder where police are moving now. That line of motorcycle officers has been there for a while. So now it's unclear if they're moving to disperse more members of the crowd at a different place. But yeah, I mean, in terms of just kind of it's a very different situation right now, where you don't have the large concentration of people in the areas where we've seen them. Now, that could change, obviously. We can see right now officers moving somewhere to another location. We don't know if that's because there is more people gathering in another part of downtown. Obviously, there's a very fluid situation, so we're not certain how that's playing out. And also, we really haven't seen any of the National Guard soldiers really out in the areas where we are. As Mike Rogers was pointing out, they were brought in to guard the federal buildings, and perhaps there are larger concentrations of them there, but they're not in the streets at all that we've seen, either now or in the hours that leading up to right now. We've just not seen them. So it is very likely, as Mike was pointing out, that they are indeed guarding federal buildings, or maybe they're in different locations. So that kind of, that really gives you a sense, I think, of just how different tonight is. Just giving you a picture here of how police have been able to break up this crowd, and it's separated in a way that we have not seen in days. So if police were trying to, if this was their mission, it's mission accomplished on many levels, because we are seeing a very, very different situation as people have sort of broken up and are in different parts of the city. Now, again, people can gather again. So obviously the LAPD is very much cognizant of that, and they're aware, and they are still, there's a small army of them, as we've been reporting as well. There's a tactical alert going on right now, which means none of them who are on shift can leave until the tactical alert is over. But it's certainly an exhausting time. And the other thing, I know other reporters have pointed this out, and I think Juan and Susie, you've talked about it as well. It's really surreal and shocking to see some of the graffiti. It's just so many buildings have been damaged. I can't even imagine how long it's going to take to clean up downtown. It's just, and a lot of it's profane stuff, and we can't really show it on television, but it's really unfortunate, because it's all over, and it's a lot of it is so many buildings that are damaged and will have to be repaired. A lot of vandalism in that sense. So, but the good news is we haven't seen any major injuries or major incidents occur between protesters and police tonight. That's, of course, the days prior we have seen a lot of that play out. Let's hope it stays that way. It seems very peaceful, again, just on this corner of the city, but things can change.
That's certainly can. And Tom, we saw that yesterday, as you mentioned. Mike Rogers, you were reporting on the situation yesterday, the protests that happened in downtown LA.
You trying to go to the front?
Yep, we're going to in a minute. Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, you just got to make our way in there slowly. If we go near the cops, don't run at them, okay? And make sure you go like this a lot. Giving out food and drinks, guys.
was pushing them away from the federal building. There was the initial clashes. We've seen, and I'm not criticizing any agency, every agency handles things differently, but we have seen in Santa Ana, we have seen here in Los Angeles, the federal agents are much quicker to use tear gas, use pepper balls, use less than lethal things, that whether it is warranted or not, the crowd is also agitated, but it just continues to escalate the situation and it continues to push things forward. And only last night in rare circumstances was the LAPD using tear gas. Other than that, they were using the foam projectiles. And I think the big thing that LAPD did early on today with the crowd is get them away from the federal building, get them away from the symbol of what is going on, and get them away from those federal officers who are a little less hesitant to use some of the more aggressive, less than lethal means than the LAPD is.
Yeah, they got the upper hand before things got or escalated as much as it did yesterday.
Yeah,
right?
and you'll watch, LAPD, and again, because they were more prepared and because the crowd was smaller, LAPD has been able to very continuously, and I think this is probably the longest time I've seen them not push the crowd.
Not move, yeah.
And every time LAPD gets the crowd in a new element and they push them through an intersection, it splinters a little bit, you lose some people in the process, and so LAPD has made a point of that, of pushing them throughout the night and making sure that they can't get into Chinatown like they did last night. They're pushing them kind of to the southeast tonight. So it's just a much different situation, and I think very direct moves by the LAPD has caused that, and I think you have a very much more calm group of protesters.
And there's a lot of spacing between the protesters too, not that big a crowd, right?
No, it's definitely a smaller, thinned out crowd tonight than what we were seeing yesterday and the day before that and the day before that even. But as Mike was just speaking to earlier tonight, LA Mayor Karen Bass speaking out about the protests that started actually as a rally for the release of SEIU President David Huerta.
That's right. She says the raids in the city and surrounding area are causing fear in the community.
We were told that raids would be to look for violent criminals, people who had warrants, but I don't know how you go from a drug dealer to a Home Depot. And it makes me feel like our city is actually a test case for what happens when the federal government moves in and takes the authority away from the state or away from local government.
Well, Mayor Bass also saying descriptions of the city are being exaggerated and most protesters have been peaceful.
Yeah, we're seeing that tonight. She says the small amount of people causing destruction will be held accountable.
Now, the president of California Service Employees International Union out of ICE custody tonight.
David Huerta was detained on Friday while protesting in downtown LA and released this afternoon on a $50,000 bond.
we need to make sure that we fight for the most vulnerable amongst us. And I don't know what journey, I don't know what they have in store for me. I imagine a project, and they're going to put me as their example of what happens. But I'm prepared to take on that journey, and I'm prepared to face that.
Huerta had his first quarter today as well. He is scheduled to be arraigned on July 7th.
Well, ongoing protests turned destructive over the weekend, as we've been talking about.
And KCAL News reporter Jasmine Veal showing us now where demonstrators left a trail of graffiti and vandalism.
On South Broadway, cleaning crews painting over Graffiti Monday that lined several blocks in downtown LA. Making repairs to buildings with smashed glass along Los Angeles Street. And tow trucks removing burned Waymo cars hours after protests escalated into violence and destruction Sunday night.
It was mayhem.
What was that? Downtown and says the actions of a few
Fuck you! Fuck you!
This is a real your career's up!
Thank you guys. Love you every time.
They're about to start shooting. Just be ready,
Questions asked.
Carvalho.